without divulging anything they said, were they at least all three of them, able to engage with you and fill you in on their perspectives of anything that you were discussing?
On September 12th and September 13th, yes, absolutely.
All three of them could fill you in on how things were going within the household. Your discussion as a group was full and rich, and you could get a feel for what was happening in that household through your conversation with the three of them.
I had private conversations with Brian. I had private conversations with Chris, and I had private conversations with Chris and Roberta separately. I can tell you that, I had an understanding of how the house was functioning at that point in time.
But you didn't have the family together, the family unit together to find out how they were coping as a unit?
There were a couple of conversations where, all, three members of the family in that household were together, yes.
Okay. So presumably, and what days were those conversations? Because, the mood and the change in what happened in the dynamic of that family is important. What days did you have those conversations where you knew how all three of them were feeling at the same time?
I would say Sunday the 12th and Monday the 13th.
So those are critical days. Can you tell me the demeanor of Brian Laundrie on the 12th and on the 13th? And when I ask you about demeanor, I'd like to try to get specific. Did he seem suicidal?
No. And I literally just spoke to the family, Chris and Roberta, maybe 45 minutes ago. And, we repeated this conversation or that question. And, Brian was not, outwardly suicidal. And what Mrs. Laundrie, what Roberta just said to me, she goes, how do you really know, what do you really know what somebody's thinking? And, we can suspect what their mood might be, but what do you really know what's going on inside? And I can tell you that, Brian was alert. He was coherent. When he was speaking with me, I had no inclination or indication that he would hurt himself.
I have heard you say on other interviews just in the last 24 hours that he was grieving. And anyone who is grieving is sad over death. Was he sad over the death of Gabby Petito when he was grieving prior to going out on his hike, from which he did not return?
And Ashley, as I've said, all day long, because I know I've been getting heat on the use of that word. Yesterday was a very long day. The day before that was a long day. One of the last interviews I gave of the evening, which was a last minute thing, I used the word grieving, which I had been using all day long with respect to Chris and Roberta and the news of the death of their son. I clarified that. I said he was upset. He was distressed. Chris described him to me as he was leaving. And this was several weeks later when Chris and I were talking about it. He said, Steve, he was upset. He was distressed. I knew I shouldn't let him walk out the door, but I couldn't stop him. I used the term grieving. It was probably a poor choice of words, and everybody has pounced on that and said, well, what was he grieving? Who was he grieving? Grieving was, used by myself multiple times yesterday with respect to Chris and Roberta, and it was a poor choice of words to be using for Brian.
So did Brian know that Gabby was dead at that point?
I can't answer that question. What Brian knew or didn't know would be privileged. It would be confidential, and certainly not something I can discuss now.
And respectfully, Counselor, I understand your privilege, but as a journalist, I do have to ask: did Brian kill Gabby?
That's it's a tough question to answer. Other than no, to my knowledge, I can't say that he did or didn't. I'm sure the FBI may be able to fill those answers in at a different time.
Do Chris and Roberta Laundrie know if their son killed Gabby?
I can't comment on that either. I mean, what Brian told, when I say I can't comment, you're asking me what the parents knew, what their son told them. I do not know.